Price of freedom is death. We're coming to get our check.
Black first, my brothers and sisters. Welcome to the Afro Elite YouTube channel. I am your host, Afro Elite. Before we get started, please, since it's Black History Month, if you haven't done so already, hit that subscribe button and notification bell so you do not miss out on any future content. Also, leave a thumbs up and share this on your various social media platforms or to a family or friend, because that helps the reach and growth of the channel. For all of what you guys do to help support this channel and including watching, thank you all very much. Now, the Chicago mayor election is coming up in like 3 weeks. So it's a lot of debates. It's a lot of articles, a lot of stuff going on as far as who's going to be the future mayor of Chicago. And this article I came across this article and I wanted to show it to you guys because Lori Lightfoot is not doing that well. She's the current mayor currently, and today is the 8th of February. So in 20 days it might change, but currently she's the mayor of Chicago and she's not doing that well with her re-election campaign. And this article, I stumbled upon it and I wanted to read it to you guys so we can all have an understanding of how poorly Lightfoot is doing with her campaign. It goes on to say, as discussed on today's 3 Monty Lunch podcast, which I haven't heard of before, but I'm assuming is some sort of news podcast. I assume, I don't know, but okay. As discussed on today's 3 Monty Lunch podcast, there is a good chance that Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot is on her way out. Then it continues to say, Mayor Lori Lightfoot's re-election battle is clouded in uncertainty. Her chances of beating either U.S. Republican Jesus Chewy Garcia, and so you guys know, a lot of people in Chicago just call him Chewy. They refer to him as Chewy, or former Chicago Public School CEO Paul Vallas, in a runoff, appearing slim. And her prospects of even making it to April election up in the air. So you guys know the runoff is in April. Okay, so if she makes it to, the runoff is gonna be in April. Okay, then it says, with the election less than 3 weeks away, 3 out of 5 voters disapprove of the job that the mayor has done in her first term. More than half hold an unfavorable opinion of her, and 71% think that the city is on the wrong track. So 71%, that's not a small margin at all. That's a very big majority that think that Chicago is not heading in the right direction. And I would agree. Okay, Chicago, there's pretty much nothing that she's done that's improved Chicago since she's been there. Okay, so majority of the people, and this is really bad because she's the incumbent, and most times when the incumbent goes for re-election, they have an advantage because most of the people have been around that person and seen what that person has done, so they have a more favorable advantage because they are thinking, okay, I know what you do, and I'm not sure what type of mayor the other person is going to be, so most people kind of go with what they're familiar with. So the incumbent in most cases, and this doesn't just go for the mayor, this goes for like the mayor, the alderman, city council, president, all of that stuff. Most of the time when they run for re-election, they have the advantage because they are the incumbent. Okay. Then it goes on to say, those are among the key findings of a WEBZ, Chicago Sun-Times, Telemundo Chicago, NBC5 poll conducted last week. Okay, this is important. These are 5 different pollings that conducted the same conclusion, that majority of Chicago disapproves of Lightfoot, has an unfavorable opinion, feels like Chicago is not heading in the right direction, feels like she didn't do a good job. Majority of Chicago feels that way about Lori Lightfoot. Okay, and this isn't just one poll that might be a little slighted to one candidate and they might throw a little shade towards Lightfoot, and so these are 5 polls, and of all 5 of these polls, they're concluding the same thing, that majority of Chicago does not like Lightfoot, and majority of Chicago most likely will not re-elect Lightfoot. Continuing, all falling within the polls' margin of error. Lightfoot, Garcia, and Valles were essentially locked in a statistically dead heat when respondents were asked whom they would vote for the February 28th election if the February 28th election were held today. Okay. So I'm not sure when this poll was taken. It must have been recent, but I'm not sure when exactly the poll was taken. And when it comes to voting and polls and stuff like that, things can change drastically in a week. Somebody's approval rating can be one thing, and then the next week is a totally different thing. But from whenever this poll was taken, or these 5 polls were taken, most of the people said unfavorable things about Lightfoot, and they're saying that they're not sure about Garcia or Valles, which I will say personally, I'm not a fan of either Garcia or Valles. Okay, I feel like there's issues with either one of them being the mayor. So just because I don't like Lightfoot does not mean I'm giving my stamp of approval on Garcia or Valles. Oh, okay. It continues. Chicago's mayoral election will be held on February 28th, and if none of the 10 candidates win a majority, the top 2 finishers will go to a runoff in April 4th. So that's pretty much what it is. People have to, the way Chicago, I don't know if all of them do this, but I'm sure pretty much all. But I'm gonna say on February 28th, that's when all of the voting is, people vote. Now there's early voting, but that's when people do majority of the voting is that day. So if none of them win a majority of the voters, you know what I'm saying? The top 2, whoever got the most of the top 2, not the majority of the voters, but the top 2 of everybody, they're gonna go on a runoff, which is explains there, and that's April 4th, which is interesting because April 4th is the day Dr. Martin Luther King was assassinated by the United States government. Continuing, both Garcia and Valles have vowed to hire more police and pledged to remove current Chicago Police Department Superintendent David Brown. Valles wants to add almost 1,800 more cops. Garcia wants to add more civilian employees to free up police officers from administrative duties. Okay, I agree with them firing David Brown. I fully agree with that. Don't like him. He needs to go. Lightfoot is the only candidate that said that she would keep him on. The problem with Garcia and Chewy is the fact that they're not touching on the fact that the environment of Chicago is what is causing the crime. When you have poverty, and this is worldwide, not just black, not just Chicago, but worldwide, when you have a lot of poverty, that has a direct correlation on the violent crime. So you have violent crime in Chicago, but that is because of the poverty. And Chicago is so very segregated, it allows the dominant society to easily cherry pick which sections of Chicago they provide resources to. That's why on the south side and the west side, you have high unemployment, high poverty, high crime. You have all of these bad things in those parts of Chicago. And then when you go over to the nice parts, the north side and all that, you have, it looks like fountains outside and paradises and dog parks and all of that. You have all of that in Chicago, and it's a night and day difference in the same exact city because it's so segregated. So you provide one part of the city with resources and deprive other parts of the city with resources. And then you say the parts of the city that you guys have deprived of resources, they're crime ridden. So what you got to do is you got to over police them. And a lot of the police are corrupt. And I've been talking about that for many years. A lot of the police in Chicago are very corrupt, so they don't do anything to decrease the crime. And how we know that is the fact that Lori Lightfoot has increased the police budget. She's hired more police, and that has not had a direct correlation in decrease of crime whatsoever, because that's never been the solution, is to hire more police or give police more money. That's never been the solution. So the crime is only getting worse, because crime is a thing that if it's not decreasing, it's going to increase. It's not going to stay stagnant. It's either going to decrease because the solution is being implemented, or it's going to increase because the solution is not being implemented. That is the thing. So the hiring more police strategy, I don't agree with. And that's something that I said earlier, why I'm not a fan of either one of them, because they're going to decrease maybe some aspects of problems in Chicago and then increase other aspects of problems in Chicago. In order to solve the problem as far as the crime and as far as the poverty, the solution needs to be to economically change the environment in those neighborhoods, and then that's going to start fixing the problem. That's going to be like the stepping stone, or the domino that's going to fix all of the other problems. That's going to fix everything else around it, and or make it easier for everything to be fixed. Hiring more police in a city, in a neighborhood that's already over policing black people, is not going to fix anything. Now, let's continue with the article. It continues to say, I'm sure that if elected, Garcia or Velez will make decisions I won't like. They are Democrats competing for the mayorship of a mostly Democratic city. But there are better Democrats and worse Democrats. And if San Francisco voters can get rid of a district attorney who fails to protect innocent people from violent crime, Chicago voters can get rid of a mayor who has failed her city. Yeah. I'm sure they won't, but we do need to get rid of Lori Lightfoot. I mean, she's failed just ultimately. Then it finishes off saying, faced with a choice between an incompetent incumbent and a challenger about whom you have doubts, the challenger seems to at least come with the possibility of change rather than the reflexive defense of the status quo. And I agree with that. Chicago needs to get rid of Lori Lightfoot. She has got to go. That does not mean that, we're just going to be voting for anybody. That's the whole, well, we just got to get her out. That the whole thing they were doing with Trump, and then they got Biden, and Biden is worse in a lot of aspects. Biden is much worse. Okay, what you want to do is you want to overall decrease the problem. Now, no candidate is going to be 100% perfect for everybody. We understand that there's going to be things that we wish we could fix. Okay. The thing is, though, is that the candidate that you vote for should have the agenda that you want. Even if there's some aspects that you disagree with, the candidate should have the agenda that you want to see in office. Okay. If this candidate says, oh, I'm going to fire David Brown, the superintendent of Chicago, or the police superintendent, that's good. I want him gone. But if you say that, and then you say, I'm going to bring in more immigrants, and I'm going to speed up their getting their citizenship and all that stuff, that's another problem. If you say, okay, I'm going to fire David Brown and open up schools, that's good. And then you say, I'm going to hire 2,000 more police officers to over police the black population, that's bad. You can't have that. Okay, we can't say, okay, well, this is our main problem, decrease this and increase that. No, we can't do that. What we need to do is we need to have a candidate that is going to overall decrease all of the problems. It's not no either or, because then we'll be sitting up there. If we get Lightfoot out of here, which she needs to go, but if we get Lightfoot out and then we get Garcia or we get Velez in there, then we're going to be having the same problem, and we're going to be feeling the same way. Like, damn, I wish we didn't put Garcia in office or Velez in office. That's going to be the same thing. So this is why it's very important for us to economically be strong and get our economics together, because that way we'll have more power, wealth, and influence to change the politics. And we can, if not change the direction that the politicians and the candidates are going in, we can pretty much set up our own politicians. We can put our own politicians in office. But the thing is that takes a lot of money. It takes money, it takes intelligence, it takes a lot. That's why we need to have our economics together. So if the people who are already running, if they're not going to comply with our agenda, we can just put somebody who already has our agenda in their mindset first in office. Brothers and sisters, please let me know what you guys think about this in the comment section below. What do you think about Lori Lightfoot? What do you think about the re-election and all of that stuff going on with Chicago? I'm going to be trying my best to kind of keep up with everything, because the election is coming up later this month. So there's a lot of debates and things like that. So I'm going to be trying to keep up with that. but let me know what you guys think. Also, follow me on my social media pages, which is at Afro Elite on Instagram and then at the Afro Elite on Twitter. And with that being said, my brothers and sisters, B1 salute to every single last one of you. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing and sharing and liking and all of what you do. Happy Black History Month, and you all have a good one.